protests spread across the Muslim world today. In Khartoum, Sudan, protesters tried to scale the walls of the American embassy and storm the German embassy. At least 3 protesters were killed, according to Sudanese state radio. In Tunisia, thousands of people demonstrated outside the U.S. embassy. Some smashed windows and tried to climb over the fence. 3 people were killed, 28 were injured. Altogether, protests spread to nearly 20 countries across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, including in Cairo and Sana'a. And in Tripoli, Lebanon, 1 person was killed when a crowd set fire to a KFC and Arby's restaurant. So when will the demonstrations stop? Are they really about a film, or was that just the spark for growing anti-American and anti-Western tensions? Joining me now in Winnipeg is Mohamed El Rashidy. He is the director of the Canadian Arab Federation. And in New York City is Raghida Dergham, the senior diplomatic correspondent with Al Hayat. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, Raghida, let's start with you. What is your reaction to the violence and the anti-American backlash that's unfolding?
Well, first of all, we have to look at the violence in each country separately. I don't think we should lump it all together and say, all right, now there's a change in heart towards the United States or the Western countries altogether. So I think we should be careful not to lump countries together. But absolutely, I think what the Secretary of State of the United States called the tyranny of the mob is absolutely true. She is right. There is that tyranny of the mob that has taken over, and it was wrong to do so. Of course, that does not justify the absolute distasteful film that was made and the distasteful timing of making sure that the Muslim world looks at it. However, this brought about to the minds of the Americans, maybe you in Canada, the idea that, oh yes, I could wake up and think foreign policy, because they've been just doing politics, and all of a sudden it became a part of this conversation about the elections. And well, as horrible as it is, it may have been useful to, or it may become useful to have the issue of foreign policy seriously on the table during the debate of the 2 candidates, and for the United States altogether, for the Americans to start to think, yes, I need to know what's going on and what is the policy if, like Clinton said, we will continue to lead the world.
Now, Mohamed, what is your reaction to the violence?
Well, I think the point is very well taken, that there are separate issues at play here. This is obviously a catalyst. The situation in Libya is somewhat more complicated, with the attack on the ambassador being an organized attack by a terrorist group, and we saw the protesters in the pictures that came out after with the body of the ambassador. They're trying to help take him somewhere for help, but he had already died from smoke inhalation. So it's important not to mix things up. But look, this issue of the West and Islam, unfortunately, we've been going down this road for a long time where there's really no dialogue. The U.S. is continuing the same policies as they were before Obama. Guantanamo is not closed. Everything is continued. If anything, you've had the drone attacks increase that are killing a lot of civilians, including children in Pakistan. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is in reverse. Palestinians continue to live under occupation, and Israel continues to grow on their expense. So the Muslim world is filled with a lot of anger in relation to all these policies, and nothing has been done about it, despite great hope under Obama. You come to this red line of insulting the Prophet, which has happened several times in the past, and you're bound to have these kinds of explosions. Of course, the violence, or reacting in a violent manner, is un-Islamic, but at the same time, when you're dealing with over 1.5 billion people, you will have all sorts of reactions from different parts of the world.
Go ahead, Raghida.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, whereas in terms of the policy towards the Palestinians, Mohammed is right. However, let's not forget another very important development. In fact, the Western countries, particularly the United States, had really been embracing the Muslim Brotherhood to the extent that it's almost a love fest with the Muslim Brotherhood and their rise to power. So
was that a mistake?
This is really not fair to say, no, maybe in a way, from my point of view, they should be included in the process, but not assumed to be the new monopoly. You know, people got rid of a tyranny and a monopoly on power. That's the celebration of these revolutions. But it's not to replace it with another monopoly. And I think the biggest mistake, speaking of a word mistake, using the word mistake, the biggest mistake being committed by the West in general, the US in particular, is that dismissal of the secularists, of the modernists, of the moderates. All of a sudden, they are secondary, but all of a sudden, let's just focus on the Muslim Brotherhood because they became the new moderates. And in effect, you would have now the Salafis or the extremists, of course, thinking, oh, my dear, now we have a new alliance between our enemy, the Brotherhood, and the United States, so they want to up the ante. And on the other hand, you would have the secularists who are really feeling that legacy of betrayal by yet again another experience with the Americans being dropped in effect. And they're the ones who are critical and outspoken against this violence. So maybe this is a point where people should correct the past.
These are good points, but I don't think the U.S. has embraced the Brotherhood and somehow neglected the seculars. You've had fair elections in those countries. You've had fair elections in those countries, and you know, you look at Egypt, you look at Tunisia, you look at Syria. Those were fair elections to a very large extent.
Yes, but you see, elections are not alone. Muhammad, elections alone are not democracy. Rights are part of democracy. If I want to comment on this point you're making, Muhammad, because it's very because you said it's not true, and it is true. It is true that there has been an embrace and an absolute support of the Islamists in Egypt, in Libya, everywhere.
Okay.
And the point.
But hold on, Raghida. No,
okay, let's let Mohammed speak for 1 second.
Yeah,
okay.
let me clarify something. I think this is too early. I mean, you have Mohamed Morsi in Egypt as a president. He hasn't even done his first 100 days yet. So we're really putting the cart before the horse. I think the United States has dealt so far pretty well with the situation in a country like Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya. They've given support to those new governments. I don't know how much criticism you want them to give, and I think you've heard Obama in a recent interview say that Egypt is not even an ally of the United States, which I thought was shocking. So I don't see this kind of embracement that you're talking about, and I think that for far too long they have supported the secular governments on the expense of the free will of these people. They have the right to choose. They'll make their bed and they get to live in it. You cannot dictate to that region what to do anymore. They will not accept it. They're not even going to accept the insulting movies overseas. That's the new reality. So the seculars have to win the elections if they want to have power. They're not going to just appeal to the West for support to come in and implant them on the throne. No more of that. It's done.
Well, that's the question. Given the help they got, Egypt and Libya, from the West, are they doing enough? Is the West doing enough? And I really only have 10 seconds for both of you. Let's start with Raghida.
I would take that, yes, because I think it is, if you watch it clearly and carefully, you will know, and if you read about it, and if you are there in the region, you will see how the United States and the Western countries have been really eager to satisfy the Muslim Brotherhood and have been really eager to ignore the secularists, and do not call the secularists those who were in power. Those who were tyrannies in power. The secularists are part of the society. The elections were not like absolute majority. The difference was very little bit. So both are part of the process, and not only one. And
they are.
Mohammed, just quickly.
Both are part of the process, but the United States has to deal with the government of the day, and I think you will see a change of government over time. Brotherhood will not sweep through the region. They have not and will not. There will be a back and forth, and that's natural. And the U.S. has to stay on the sidelines when it comes to internal politics.
Definitely one of those topics that causes a lot of issues and a lot of discussion. I want to thank Mohamed El Rashidy and Raghida Dergham for joining us today. As anger continues to